Make every night a wonderful journey, no matter where you are. Good night, sweet dreams. The first story, Sleep Easy. Out of every 50 museums in the world, there will be one which is part of it closed off to the public. The security is unusually very strict near this area, and it's very difficult to get past them. Should you manage to get past, you probably won't return, although it is forbidden to enter this zone. It is possible to get a preview if you ask the curator before closing time, when nobody is around. Once you have done this, dim lights will come on, forming a path, and you will be asked to follow closely as you travel through a myriad of ancient artifacts and incredible structures with mystical writings. You will find the exhibits getting wilder, crazier, too peculiar and profane for human viewing. Surprisingly, you will be quite sane when you are asked to swear an oath. Indeed, the curator will demand of you not to speak of what you have seen and heard. You will, whether by choice or compulsion, agree. You will emerge into a room, mostly obscured by a ghastly mist. There will only be one noticeable attraction: a fireplace wall. With a clock above it, there will be a single wooden chair some distance from it. The curator will take his seat. He will direct you to that wall. You have no choice. He will instruct you to put your ear against the wall. Comply now. You will hear the unmistakable audible sensation of scratches and whispers and unholy fervent prayers, and the crackling of the fires. You will know with certainty that there is something grisly and morbid lying behind these walls, yet strangely, you will feel a sense of pity and understand this is imprisonment. You will visualize a cell, green and sick, filled with the stench of death, decay, and wretched blood and dubious treachery, but you will be unable to discern any physical presence in this room. This wickedness, how can you grasp it? It is exceedingly corrupt. The curator will confirm your suspicions, but he will say no more. Whispering, the walls speak fierce, sympathizing and yearning, driven by unfounded curiosity, and having no feeling of dread. You will inexplicably request to remain at this wall. The clock ticks on loudly. As the curator agrees, the curator will grant you your wish with one final exchange. Indeed, O foolish mortal, you have doomed yourself to a hellish twist at the exact moment when he is about to leave for home. The distant lights will go out and the scratches will stir. The fires will stifle intrigue. Arrogantly, you will speak. What you will hear in response will be deeply horrifying. Many go mad in anticipation of this reply. They are silenced when they hear it. If you are lucky, you will suffer neither of these fates. What is said is only known to you, and is harmless, but the mental image that is printed in your mind is what will scar you. You must not show any sign of fear and sorrow. When you are shown this image, you will be drowned in them, unable to leave for all eternity. All the dark and miserable memories you possess, repressed and suppressed, will be unlocked in that instance. You must then ask what the purpose of nightmares is. Immediately, you will hear words and curses in unknown language, and you will find your answer lying before you. It is the cause of your despair. Destroy it, you will be able to live a life of happiness. But in doing so, you will have let loose this monstrosity into the world, and you will be swallowed up living out your dreams with no realization of what happened to you. Should you choose not to destroy it, be resolute in your choice, for the creature's wrath is about to come upon you. It shrieks, the clawing and savage growls and screaming, and the absolute pressure of its endless hatred will apprehend every part of your body. Your body will literally be begging you to submit as it feels being torn flesh and veins, marrows and bones. Your eyes will shrivel and your mouth will be as fierce as the furnace that lies beside you, and beneath your lungs will gasp for air, as the room is flooded with murky dark water, driven onward by a strong and evil wind that cannot be calmed. Your feet will lose weight and open cementation in the wavering beliefs and morals you stand upon, as the voracious funnel of miserable fire and watery delight, the ultimate symbol of destructive doom and ethereal devastation, the one that devours everything in its path and seeks out those which hide from it, that collects at the ceiling of this former sanctuary, pulling you up, threatening to bring you up into a vortex of pure dereliction and mayhem, into the cacophony of every beast and every man crying out in agony, the crackling of burning flames, and the shots of every gunshot heard throughout the world ringing and piercing your exhausted ears until you can bear no more. The casualties and consequences of war and senseless killing seeping into your veins and bloodied eyes as you look down into the gun you wield, that you used to slaughter and put all your hate into, and you hear the maddened calls of the ravens in unison, and prying at your decaying flesh, serpents reaching out for you with lust, an invitation of disorderly death extend to you. Your mangling will be one of billions that undergo this endeavor, but should you be resilient, you will find yourself unscathed, and that foul wall will be burned, and the room will be cleared of that mist as moonlight shines through on you, and written on that charred wall will be the answer you have been looking for, the answer to all nightmares, the life you should have lived, the life that you were expected of, the life that you abandoned, the life of simplicity. Sleep easy. The second story. Truthfully, who are you? You are you. You are unique. There is no one else completely like you. You look in the mirror. You see you. You have a consciousness, but truthfully, who are you? This question stalked my mind for days on end. Philosophy is some kind of evil to me now. I woke up in a large stretch of land. It was dark, but the sky was bright, even though it cast no light on the environment, the black horizon stretched off for miles. I was completely devoid of memory, only a single thought rang in my head. Who am I? In all my life, I finally understood what this question was. I knew what it felt like to be nobody. I literally didn't exist. I was an unnamed man. The grass-covered ground beneath my feet absorbed my shoes. If I had any on my body was a ghost, a mist. I was nothing. The men wore ballast CAB masking their identities. They mumbled something in a strange language I couldn't understand. The dead innocents around me lie in pools of blood. The windows of the bank shattered. I was tied to a chair. I could feel rashes and bruises as I was recently beat with rifle stocks. I was untied, hoisted up, and brought outside into the bright daylight where several vans await. I was too weak to resist. To the men around me, I was nothing. The black stretch of land was comforting yet horrifying at the same time. I felt free, even though distressed by the question in my head. I moved my muscles. They were surprisingly stiff, but I managed. I walked around, getting used to the conditions. I was neither hot or cold. The temperature was at a medium, which I was glad for. I picked a random spot which I sat in that, as when the images started rolling in, I was panicked. These men were trying to kill me. They plunked me down into one of the beetle cars behind the vans. One of the men spoke to me, though in very bad English. Drive into the police station. 30-minute or family dies. I was panicked by the sound of ticking in the back of the car. I saw sticks of clay-like substances strapped to timers, filling the back seats. I couldn't escape. I was completely strapped to the driver's chair. The only thing I could do was obey. I was confused. I have no idea what that was. It felt like a different man. Although I knew it was me, then I noticed something peculiar. The crimson sky had transitioned to a sickly green color. Who was I? I was a man. It was pretty obvious during the images. My own morals had not been questioned. The question was blocked by the ticking of clocks. Clocks, ticking down to my death. People were trying to kill me, my unique personality, so they can get their diluted benefits. Twisted. My hands sweat around the leather steering wheel. I was told to follow the van, so I did. I was such an idiot. I was going to kill innocent people, so I drove. Gunfire shrouded my sense of hearing, and the only thing I saw was the road through the grungy windshield. I couldn't believe this was happening. I felt odd. No emotion for the people I was being driven to kill. The only reason that I wasn't shot at the bank was that they needed some guy to play hero, so they can spare their own lives. Who am I? I have consciousness. I have dreams. I have goals, but not here. This was limbo. I was in non-existence. I still never figured out who I was. What happened to me? I lay on the grass, weeping in self-pity. I somehow knew that I, the other I in the visions, still had a tiny sliver of hope left. The police station was coming up. The digital timer in the back seat read 0:50. I had little time. If I hit the police station, at least I would kill authorities who knew the risks of their work. Better than waiting for the bomb to go off and kill the people in the cars around me. The decision was final. The last choice I was about to make would determine who I was. But it didn't. I am here. But I used to be there. Reminds you of how time flies. The sky was almost completely black, and I felt alone. No one was going to help me. I was watching the end of my own life unravel. The station was in front of me. Timer reading 0:10, but I had a better idea. I rear-ended the van in front of me as fast as I could, and saw blood splatter on the back windows. The compacted van was immobile. The men on the front seats got out and fired their rifles at me. I felt a sharp pain as the bullet entered my gut. I had 5 seconds left. I grinned. These people were stupid enough to be in front of me. I right-card into them one last time, killing one of them and endangering the other. 1 second left. The van looked like a scrapyard after ramming it. I was watching it, and the answer is revealing itself. I was so close. I barely saw the sparks fly over my shoulder as the bombs detonated, destroying the vans driven by the terrorists. I'm here now, in the nothingness. I know who I am, but the question is, who are you? The third story, life and death. Dan awoke in a panic before calming down to examine his surroundings. He was in a cramped, empty room, the only noticeable features being the towering doors standing across from each other, as if in some sort of stark standoff. Dom couldn't remember how he had gotten there, or why he had fallen asleep, but he had never woken in an area so strange. Hello? Anyone there? He questioned. His friendly tone quickly became agitated. Okay, I don't know who's behind all this, but I am not a willing participant. His voice was now noticeably angry. Look man, this is bullshit. Asu, do you know who I am? I know a lot of people you do not want to meet, and I'll call them right now, if I have to. He reached for his pants, only to realize that his phone was not in his left pocket. He began frantically feeling and searching his various pockets, but was unsuccessful. "Okay, Ivy, about had enough of this shit." His voice hit the surrounding walls and died, as if he had never said anything at all. The silence was deafening. Dan veered his attention back to the doors. The door on the left immediately drew his attention. Its gleaming white finish was almost too intense to stare at, its presence glistening and lighting up the surrounding wall space. Dan wasn't exactly a door expert, but it had to be the most alluring design he could fathom. Like it was designed to be perfect, its angelic presence demanded attention. The other door lacked the same appeal. This one was shorter than the white door, and it was old, battered, and the door seemed to fit unevenly into the wall, and he could see pitch blackness through the resulting cracks. The door's placid emptiness seemed to contaminate the surrounding area, and the light from the opposing door died as it reached its counterpart. And like the previous door, which was characterized by light, this door was clouded in darkness and couldn't bear to look any longer, and he pulled his eyes away. This door, it seemed, was evil, somehow apart from its less than appealing design. Something else, something he couldn't explain, flooded through the dark cracks. Dan moved toward the white door. As he closed the distance, the blinding light began to fade, and the details of the door became more apparent. Positioned in the center of the frame was a golden plaque. Etched into the gold was a large paragraph of unreadable text. As he moved closer, the text became clearer, as if it had changed from when he had first seen it. He squinted his eyes and read, "This door is life. Beyond it, there is harmony and eternal happiness. The troubles you know now will lose significance. Those you miss and loved ones you have lost will no longer hold meaning to you. You will be in perfect happiness. There is no evil beyond this door. It is forbidden. It is impossible. This door is life." The words penetrated Dan's very being, filled with a sudden joy he could not understand or care to understand. For that matter, he reached for the shining glass handle, but in a sudden rant of human curiosity, he withheld his arm. There was still another door to check, another option. Dan backed away from the white door. The more he stepped away, the brighter the door's illumination became, until the detail and the plaque had disappeared and only a white, shining light remained. Too bright to distinguish, he struggled to pull away his gaze before realizing that he had almost backed into the other door. He jumped back in panic and turned to face his foe. Much like the other door, this one had more to it. When Dan was closer, what was once covered in an eerie blackness was now clear. This door, like the one before it, featured a small paragraph in the center of the frame. This one neither shined nor changed. It was rotting in its place and crumbling under what seemed like millennia of decay. The knob seemed to melt towards the floor as if it pulled away. He struggled to read the fading text. "This door is death. Beyond it, all the horror." Your troubles are magnified here, your fears apparent, and they are all that is real. You will search for happiness and never truly find it. Your pursuits will only lead into further lust. There is great evil beyond this door. This door is death. Dan's heart sank at the final word. He backed away from the door until he stood evenly between the two choices, one beautiful, with promises of good and happiness, the other disgusting, with assurance of misery and hopelessness. An easy choice, Dan surmised. He moved towards his decision, his eyes again adjusting and making out the details of the door as he moved closer. The glass handle was now in sight. The promises on the plaque seemed to already be coming true. As the horror he felt in the presence of the other began to fade, the closer he got. Eager and curious beyond imagining, he again reached for the handle. Whether by a twist of fate or a random chance, he was stopped. Not physically, but rather like his heart could not bring himself to do it in light of a new variable. Noises now emitted from the opposing door. It was the first sound he had heard other than his own voice since he had woken. The noise was indistinguishable at first, but became clearer as he listened. It was a woman, sobbing and screaming in horror and agony. Dawn turned to look at the blackness. The sound seeped through the dark cracks. The cries escalated in both volume and emotion. The light from the white room now gleamed brighter in the corner of his peripheral vision, brighter than it ever had. He was in the middle of two opposing forces, his pursuit of happiness and his instinct for compassion. Whoever this woman was, she clearly needed help. And Dan wasn't the type of man to ignore the cries of a woman in peril. The words on the plaques echoed in his mind, beating the sides and practically escaping through his ears. If he went to the left, he figured, he would no longer care for the woman. Assuming the plaque was telling the truth, this wasn't right. He decided, as Dan could not bring himself to justify blissful ignorance. The light from the left gleamed now even brighter, as if it yearned to change his mind. He pondered the idea of letting go and succumbing to the light, to be perfectly happy. Never before had Dan been so deeply conflicted. At this point, the woman had stopped crying and was now screaming at the top of her lungs. It seemed this time, no amount of happiness could pull him away. D-N-W-H-Y. O-H-G, oh God, and then immediately turned at the mention of his name. The truth is that he mentally never made a decision. If he had, he probably would have chosen the other door. Rather, his body, without thought and in fluid motion, darted towards the black door, his adrenaline fueling his flight. He ran from everything he could ever hope for towards the girl who knew his name, racing against his own mind and the chance to reason himself out of it. He grabbed the melting doorknob, pulled the door with all the fury of his humanity, and plunged into the blackness. Dan awoke, coughing up blood and in intense pain. Burning wreckage and blood littered his resting place. He struggled to raise his head towards the love of his life, now sobbing in immense joy. What happened? Dan coughed through his broken ribs. A familiar voice responded. We were in an accident. I thought I'd lost you. Her sobbing resumed. Dan struggled to sit up, but his ribs ached in resistance. He began questioning what the hell had just happened. The door's ominous text still rang in his head. This door is death.